felt that in a fearful nation, someone named Barack Obama could never hope to win an election. And yet, here we stand because we had a different concept, a different notion of the American people. We understood that there was a core decency to the American people, that there were a set of shared values that extended beyond race and region, extended beyond income and ethnicity.
And Barack Obama would be the man to prove it. In a 2006 interview, he likened his melting pot family to a mini United Nations. With 6 half-siblings from his Kenyan father's family and a half-sister from his mother's second marriage to an Indonesian, the president-to-be became the poster boy for cultural diversity. Born in Hawaii on August 4th, 1961, he was just 2 years old when his parents parted. By the time he was 7, he and his mother Anne had moved to Indonesia to live with his new stepfather Lolo Sotoro, and they were soon joined by baby Maya. Nicknamed Barry at school, despite the language barrier, it soon became clear he was a hard worker. But the upheavals didn't end there. When he was 10, Barack was sent back to Hawaii to live with his grandparents Gramps and Toot, so he could get an American education. After graduating with a BA in political science from Columbia University in 1983, he moved to Chicago, and it was there his interest and talent for activism and grassroots politics really took hold. Working as a community organizer in the most disadvantaged areas of Chicago, he established a job training program and a tenants' rights organization. While he was there, he also met firebrand preacher Reverend Jeremiah Wright, whose rousing sermons prompted Barack to see involvement with the church as an effective way of achieving social reform. But first, he needed to know his way around the law, and in 1988 he was accepted into Harvard Law School. By the end of his first year, he was an editor of the Harvard Law Review, and a year later he was elected as the first black president of the magazine. After graduating from Harvard, he worked as a lawyer and received a fellowship at the University of Chicago, where he taught constitutional law for 12 years and began making a name for himself in the local political scene. In 1996, he was elected to the Illinois State Senate and stayed there for 8 years, until he was elected to the U.S. Senate by the greatest victory margin for a statewide race in the history of Illinois, largely due to his star-making keynote address at the 2004 National Democratic Convention in Boston. His newfound national fame led to the reissue of the book he'd written in 1995, called Dreams from My Father, which subsequently became a bestseller. He followed up with The Audacity of Hope, the title of which came from one of Reverend Wright's sermons, and went on to be another bestseller. By the end of 2006, with the increasingly unpopular Bush administration coming to an end, unlike the equally unpopular war with Iraq, he sensed his opportunity.
So they want to try something new, and I think people have a lot of enthusiasm about the message Democrats are delivering.
And in February 2007, he was ready to make his big move.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
It was the announcement that his swelling legions of supporters had been yearning to hear. And at the tender age of 45, he began his bid to become the first African-American incumbent of the White House. Of course, he wasn't embarking on his historic climb alone. Alongside his campaign team, which included communications director Robert Gibb and speechwriter John Favreau, he could count on the towering support of his wife Michelle, whom he met when they were both lawyers back in 1989. In The Audacity of Hope, Barack wrote of Michelle, "If I ever had to run against her for public office, she would beat me without much difficulty." He also publicly credited her, along with his mother, who died of ovarian cancer in 1995, as being among the many women who've helped enlighten him about gender politics. Michelle gave birth to their first daughter, Malia, in 1998. Little Natasha followed 3 years later. With her husband's star on the rise throughout the early years of the millennium, Michelle swapped the maternity frocks for designer dresses and began making a name for herself as a budding fashion icon. Drawing praise for her poise and style, she made the perfect consort for a political go-getter with his eyes on the prize.
Her style is one of a fresh new attitude. She's young, she's modern. I think she's very practical with the way that she dresses. And I also think that she is going to bring a new American vision to the way people dress.
Her love of bold colors and penchant for figure-hugging silhouettes had fashion writers calling her a breath of fresh air in the typically stuffy, conservative world of politics. She was even being compared with legendary 60s icon Jacqueline Kennedy, the enduring benchmark of First Lady elegance. However, Michelle's more pragmatic, less exclusive approach to achieving great style made her more approachable than the rather aloof Jackie O, as she smiled and waved her way along the campaign trail with her husband. And it was to prove a long and bumpy road. After being left so long out in the cold, Democrat supporters were suddenly faced with a tough choice over who should lead them into the 2008 presidential election. Not only had Barack Obama put his hand up for the job, Hillary Clinton, one of the party's strongest candidates in years, had also thrown her hat into the ring. The battle for the Democratic nomination would prove to be protracted and arduous, with the two candidates engaging in a fierce game of one-upmanship. Hillary's camp attempted to win confidence by emphasizing the greater experience on their side.
We know what we need is someone ready on day one. I know we're ready. Thank you all, and God bless you.
And who could argue with Hillary's husband and two-time President Bill Clinton on her side?
You did well tonight. I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you for helping.
It's a victory for America.
Meanwhile, Barack was using his youth and lesser political experience to make a case for change people could believe in.
America, it is time to start bringing our troops home. It's time to admit that no amount of American lives can resolve the political disagreement that lies at the heart of someone else's civil war. That's why I have a plan that will bring our combat troops home by March of 2008.
The attention paid to the struggle between the two Democratic candidates, however, often meant that actual policies and issues became sidelined. But Barack tried to stick to his core message and emphasized again and again his three core issues: ending the war in Iraq, increasing energy independence, and providing universal health care. And in February 2008, he won 13 out of the 22 states who went to polls on Super Tuesday, as well as the endorsement of Democratic heavyweights Ted and Caroline Kennedy. And as things began to swing his way, Hillary suggested that Barack was being given an easy time of it by the press.
In the last several debates, I seem to get the first question all the time, and I don't mind. I'll be happy to field them, but I do find it curious. And if anybody saw Saturday Night Live, maybe we should ask Barack if he's comfortable and needs another pillow. I just find it kind of curious that I keep getting the first question on all of these issues.
However, media commentator Mark Jerkovitz believed that the positive press he was receiving in early 2008 was not a product of bias, but smart campaigning and success. Not that it all went Barack's way. Just 1 month after his Super Tuesday victory, controversy erupted over his alliance with his former pastor, Jeremiah Wright. ABC News had found clips from the preacher's sermons in which he claimed that the US brought the September 11 attacks in 2001 upon itself with its own terrorism.
We bombed Hiroshima, we bombed Nagasaki, and we nuked far more
than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon, and we never batted an eye.
While Barack refused to personally condemn the man who'd strengthened his faith and officiated at his wedding, he responded by distancing himself from Jeremiah Wright's comments and announced that he and his family would be leaving the controversial Trinity Church. With that controversy still raging, the campaign turned its attention to Pennsylvania, and Barack played into the Clinton camp's hands by commenting that small towns in the state clung to guns or religion and anti-immigrant sentiment in their bitterness over decades of unemployment. His remarks caused a furore in the press, and Hillary went to town.
Senator Obama's remarks are elitist and they're out of touch. They are not reflective of the values and beliefs of Americans.
But Barack stuck to his proverbial guns.
I said something that everybody knows is true. When you're bitter, you turn to what you can count on. So people, they vote about guns, or they take comfort from their faith and their family and their community, and they get mad about illegal immigrants.
And by mid-May, he'd effectively won the shootout. On June the 7th, Hillary formally terminated her candidacy and endorsed Barack as the Democratic presidential nominee.
Today, as I suspend my campaign, I congratulate him on the victory he has won and the extraordinary race he has run. I endorse him and throw my full support behind him.
At the news that Hillary Clinton had finally thrown in the towel, Barack's fans went wild. And with the in-house battle for candidacy out of the way, it soon became clear that there were quite a few of them. By early 2009, Obama mania had spread all the way to Japan, breathing new life into the formerly sleepy rural town that coincidentally bore his name. Spotting opportunity in the rising popularity of their namesake, the enterprising citizens of Obama formed a local support group for him, launching a range of Obama merchandise, such as posters, badges, and T-shirts. Meanwhile, over in the US, his celebrated oratory skills and tagline, "Change We Can Believe In," was earning him endorsements from a growing army of celebrity supporters, most notably Oprah Winfrey. Some political commentators went so far as to suggest that the talk show queen's backing of Barack was what got him across the line with Hillary. Whether or not that's true, analysts generally agree that her decision to throw her weight behind the young presidential hopeful earned him well in excess of 1 million votes in the Democratic primary race.
Is he the one? South Carolina, I do believe he's the one to bring us the audacity of hope. Barack Obama! Barack Obama! It's Obama time! It's Obama time!
Plenty of other big hitters agreed.
Well, I'm an Obama guy for a year and a half, so I'm very excited by his campaign and
I'm excited about Senator Obama. I'm excited about just the desire for seeing change.
But yeah, it is. I hope Obama wins.
As Barack squared up against Republican Party nominee John McCain for the next stage in the presidential race, many more celebrities jumped on the Obama bandwagon and got behind him, including celebrity power couples Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, and Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. Hollywood legend Robert De Niro also joined the campaign trail.
Barack Obama does not have the experience to be President of the United States. And I can prove that. Remember, he wasn't experienced enough to vote to authorize the invasion of Iraq. Instead, even then, he voted against a war he said would lead to an occupation of undetermined length, and undetermined cost, and undetermined consequences. He just didn't get it.
But undoubtedly, one of the greatest coups of the campaign was scoring the support of former Vice President and environmental warrior Al Gore.
It is important for us to say loudly and clearly with our votes this November, we need change. We intend to have change.
With Hollywood and big-name Democrats vocal in their support, Barack Obama set out for Washington.
I am running to tell the corporate lobbyists that their days of setting the agenda in Washington are over. They have not funded my campaign. They will not work in my White House. And they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm President of the United States of America.
But with little more than a decade's experience in serious politics, he would have his work cut out to convince America that he was better qualified for the top job than a decorated war veteran with more than 30 years as a senator.
I think that it'll be that he's not experienced. I think that McCain will try the same thing that Senator Clinton is trying, and that there's not a lot behind his, other than his inspiring message. That there's not a lot of policies behind it.
At 71 years of age, John McCain was determined to call his bluff.
I will fight every moment of every day in this campaign to make sure Americans are not deceived by an eloquent but empty call for change.
To help counteract criticism about his youth and relative inexperience, he nominated 65-year-old Joe Biden as his running mate. Although not everyone applauded the move. But if Barack Obama's supporters questioned his choice of running mate, the Republicans were completely bewildered by John McCain's decision to bring fresh-faced Sarah Palin into the fold. On September the 4th, 2008, the Obama campaign announced that in the 24 hours after Sarah Palin's acceptance speech, they raised a whopping $10 million in donations. The formerly unknown governor for Alaska soon became a household name, thanks to a string of revelations about her private life in the media, and her ill-informed performances on the podium did little to inspire voters with confidence, although she soon became a favorite with commentators and comedians. Meanwhile, Barack faced criticism about his lack of policies by going head-to-head with John McCain in 3 presidential debates, focusing on issues such as the economy and foreign policy. CBS polls after the debates labeled him the clear winner on all 3 occasions. He drew praise for sticking to his focus on fixing the economy. As markets around the world started to crash, his policies seemed to resonate. And with the poll date of November the 4th approaching, he pulled ahead. After the highest voter turnout in more than 40 years, Barack Obama swept to victory by a margin of almost 10 million votes to become the first African-American president of the United States, much to the delight of his hordes of supporters and influential friends.
I felt watching Obama get there, and I was very frightened that he wasn't going to make it. It really worried me because I couldn't see what the future would be with the other ticket. And seeing a man of color, be there, be in that place, has lifted my spirit. And I actually feel this thing about race and racism. It's hurt me so badly for years.
Now I feel very excited about the future of our country, and it's historical and extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary.
And there was plenty of advice on what he should do first.
It's his job to make the ultimate decision for the whole country, but I just know that, it's a depression right now with with people not having income and not being able to go get money. And I feel like if anything could change, he should change that. And it's just a matter of bringing back programs to help people who want to work.
To look around and think we are part of a global, interdependent, whole entity, organism, and we have to pay attention to that. And I just hope he knows that so many people are on his side.
He certainly couldn't have failed to notice that on Inauguration Day on the 20th of January 2009, with hundreds of thousands of supporters and well-wishers lining the streets of Washington to get a glimpse of their new president, who was scheduled to attend no fewer than 10 inaugural balls that night.
I want to thank all of you, not merely for helping me get elected, but I want to thank each and every one of you and all the people who are watching tonight for what you do to make this country better.
After dancing the night away with Michelle and being serenaded by the likes of Beyoncé, Bruce Springsteen, Jamie Foxx, Alicia Keys and Mariah Carey, it was on with the job of running the country. Aside from getting the US economy back on its feet with a $780 billion stimulus package, one of his first priorities was the Middle East.
Starting at the beginning of our administration, we are going to engage effectively and consistently in trying to resolve the conflicts that exist in the Middle East.
In his first few days in office, he also issued executive orders directing the development of plans to withdraw troops from Iraq and continued his campaign to improve US relations with Muslim countries in an attempt to promote peace in the Middle East. In October, his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples were recognized by the Norwegian Nobel Committee. It awarded him the 2009 Nobel Peace Prize, making him the first US president to become a Nobel laureate in his first year of office. Back at home, he continues to attract the level of media attention normally reserved for rock stars and sporting heroes. Alongside his eloquence and passion for change, his youth and slender good looks have helped him build a bridge between the hitherto incompatible worlds of politics and popular culture. With a glamorous Michelle and their 2 daughters by his side, he's maintained a relaxed approach to public life. His cross-cultural heritage and continued accessibility make him truly a man of the people. And for the time being at least, the people just can't get enough of Barack Obama.
The fact that People and Us are putting political leaders who aren't in trouble on their covers, I don't know, maybe the sign of some kind of new era. Barack Obama has managed to knock Paris and Brittany off the cover of a bunch of magazines. I think that's a good thing.
He and his mother Anne had moved to Indonesia to live with his new stepfather Lolo Sotoro, and they were soon joined by baby Maya. Nicknamed Barry at school, despite the language barrier, it soon became clear he was a hard worker. But the upheavals didn't end there. When he was 10, Barack was sent back to Hawaii to live with his grandparents Gramps and Toot, so he could get an American education. After graduating with a BA in political science from Columbia University in 1983.
In a fearful nation, someone named Barack Obama could never hope to win an election. And yet, here we stand because we had a different concept, a different notion of the American people. we understood that there was a core decency to the American people, that there were a set of shared values that extended beyond race and region, extended beyond income and ethnicity. They felt that
he moved to Chicago, and it was there his interest and talent for activism and grassroots politics really took hold. Working as a community organizer in the most disadvantaged areas of Chicago, he established a job training program and a tenants' rights organization. While he was there, he also met firebrand preacher Reverend Jeremiah Wright, whose rousing sermons prompted Barack to see involvement with the church as an effective way of achieving social reform. And Barack Obama would be the man to prove it. In a 2006 interview, he likened his melting pot family to a mini United Nations. With 6 half-siblings from his Kenyan father's family and a half-sister from his mother's second marriage to an Indonesian, the president-to-be became the poster boy for cultural diversity. Born in Hawaii on August 4th, 1961, he was just 2 years old when his parents parted. By the time he was 7,